Interview with Cassio Anthony, aka Gen X, Wednesday the 2nd of October. No, yes, October 2013, right. Um, my life, you know, it's a long journey, you know. Grew up in a village deep south of Trinidad called Palo. Growing up with a lot of hate. And what caused this hate and anger and rage is because my mom told me who my father was when I was a very young age, about probably 9. But the stories that followed, I hated the man with a passion. And he would try to reach out to me, and I would just, rebel against him. And he worked taxis, so sometimes he would pass with his taxi and ask me for if I wanted a lift to school, and I would just, push him away. And I would go to school and hear young men talking about their fathers and their daddies, and I would feel left out because I couldn't join in those conversations. I would go on the block, hang out with my friends, and they would be talking about the father, and I just had to stay out and. And one day I decided, you know what, let me try this daddy thing and see how it worked, because I saw so many of my friends who were happy talking and boasting about their fathers. And I had one who was reaching out, so I decided to reach back. And one morning, standing at the road, arguing with myself if to do this or not, he passed. But what happened, whenever he passed, he would smile, and this morning when he passed, I looked at him, and when he smiled, I smiled back, and he held a sudden break. And he reversed, and when he reversed, he asked me, "You want to lift to school?" And I said, "Whatever." And I just jumped in the car and I slammed the door. And on the way to school, he keep talking about he loves me and why he did what he did. And all these things keep going through one ear and coming through the next. And what I did remember is when I got to school, that daddy take out $100 and give me. Man, I say I love my daddy. That is the best daddy in the world. I walk on the car with our bunks. When I got into the school, people asking me, "Who is that?" I said, "I'm my daddy. That is my father." All on the block hanging out with my friends. He would pass working taxi and he would blow and wave and I would wave back and I said, "Who is that?" I said, "I'm my father." So I was like the happiest boy around. This void was filled. So I was good to go. And then one morning they came knocking at my door, calling my mother, and I got up to see what was all the commotion about. And when I got outside, they said, "Your father and his mother, they were arguing yesterday evening." And I said, "Okay, that's normal. Every family have a little squabble, and they always have that. So what's the problem?" They say he stabbed her up and killed her. And with that world that I just described for you, with this happy boy, began crumbling in an instant. And a rage took over my body that I didn't just hate my father, no, I hated anything that moved, literally anything that moved. Even the dogs, I would actually kick off the first tread of the steps because I just had hate, raw hate and anger. And the one woman who tried to guide me was my mother, who told me, to become a better person, I needed to make sacrifices, make right decisions, but I thought she was trying to control my life. And one day I said to myself, I now see why my father did what he did, and decided to take that same path into trying to murder my mom. But I thank God that was to no avail, where at the time I was about to do it, she jumped up and her eyes made four, and I just couldn't do it. And I said to myself, tomorrow I would do it. But I believe that God had a plan, and even that, at that time, His hand was upon my life. But my mother wasn't a stupid woman. She knew that I was trying to take her life because I threatened her many times. And she told me I had to leave. So with this, my brother and I had a big falling out. Big altercation took place, and I had to leave. And this landed me on the streets of Port-of-Spain all the way over 2.5 hours from my present home where I lived. And in Port-of-Spain, I sat on a bench, and the reality began to hit me. What did I do? I was about approximately 5 to 6 in the evening, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, around there. The place began getting dark. And that is when I realized I had to survive somehow or the other, because I wasn't going back home because of the shame of hearing all my friends, they heard what my mom had said, and I was playing man, so I packed my bag and left. So to go back home would be sort of a shameful experience to me. And even the guys who taught me to smoke weed and drink rum, when my mom put me out and I told them I asked one of them in particular, was my best friend. I said to him, allow me to spend a couple nights by you just until I could sort myself out. He said he won't be able to do it. His father, well dread. So I realized then that these guys really don't have your back, or they can't, even though they want to, because, you know, they're just there to help you do wrong things, you know. So in Port of Spain, I spent my first night on the street, and one night left days, nights upon nights, and then weeks turned into months, and months turned into over. Well, actually, it's almost a year. I lived on the streets, but within that time, you know, opportunity presented itself for me to get into gang activities and criminal activities and illegal stuff. And the devil presented these opportunities because I was desperate to survive. I needed money. You know, I was getting fed up of washing car in Independence Square, and I got fed up of begging people for stuff to eat. You know, this one particular doubles vendor in Port of Spain there, it was one thing I was sure about, is that every day I would eat a doubles because he would be there and I would go and, you know. So basically that was my life, and I got fed up of it. So I decided, you know what, I needed an upgrade, and desperation kicking even more, and I got an opportunity to become a bandit. And I got an opportunity to sell drugs and join a gang, which I did. And my life changed from there, and everything began spiraling up, you know, in the sense of, you know, crime and war and anger and, you know, and thieving and all these things. But I became like a household name in the ghetto because I'd lived through my first drive-by, and one of our friends had died. And the fact that I lived made people start calling me bulletproof, and they felt as though I couldn't dare because I was sitting right there. And I walked the streets with no fear, as though I can't die, and I would do what I want, and I would have guns in my waist, and I wouldn't care about anybody and anything. And then history repeated itself some months after. I lived through my second drive-by, but this time we went to the station, and I had to write a report out. And then writing out the report, the friends who said they had my back, who were all members of this gang, they told me not to come outside the station because there was a guy outside waiting. The same guy involved in the drive-by came back to finish the job. And I was left again all alone after being loyal to friends who said they had my back. These guys left me in that station there. Not one of them did anything to help. So I approached our officer, who at the time showed no concern. He didn't care at all about it. And I sat there and I said to myself, I can't leave that station. So my intention was to do something to stay, which is to get locked up. So I decided this officer who played, he didn't care. I was going to do him something very bad, hit him a kick, and make him now have to arrest me. But I thank God for intervening. You know, just I'm about to do this. The Lord revealed his hand to me in that station, and it held me back from what I was going to do. And this hand began guiding me to our next officer, who the Lord used to really, you know, share with me and tell me about Jesus and tell me about, you know, he said to me, I don't need to shed my blood because Jesus shed all the blood that needs to be shed. And, you know, this man was a complete stranger. And what made me listen to him was the fact that when I approached his desk, he said to me, stop running from God. And I'm thinking, what foolishness is this? I telling you about life and death, and you telling me about God. But he said to me, he went in the bathroom to pee. He said, but before he could have even started to pee, God said to him, go back by his desk. And he said, young man, I'm here to speak with you. And that really got my attention. A complete stranger. You know, I thought nobody cared. I thought no one loved me, you know. But then I get to realize that love doesn't necessarily only have to come from your immediate family or people that you know, because when I really studied the scriptures, Jesus Christ, at the end of the day, he came for complete strangers, you know, for friends. And at the end of the day, I believe that when this man met me that day, he didn't know who I was. He didn't have a clue. He probably knew me from being in the station, but he didn't really know me per se. And he decided to give me a chance, and he opened the back of the station. He told me to run. He would look or watch my back. And for the first time, I actually believed that someone would have really watched my back. And he did, you know, and from then my life began changing. I began really detaching from certain friends, that so-called friends that they would say. I began detaching from them, and I started to think about my life in a different way. And to make a long story short, it wasn't long after I accepted Jesus Christ into my life as my personal Savior. It didn't happen immediately. I still got myself in trouble and stuff a lot, but not as much as I did before this incident took place. But God began to work, and then and one night I met a pastor who sat and spoke with me, and in 15 minutes time I decided to accept Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior. And from then to now, it's been such a blessing. You know, sitting in church one day, I started to ask God for more work. which he did give to me. He mandated me to go to different parts of the country where I once hurt people, and he told me to begin to help build up lives instead of hurting, start helping people. And it was very difficult, to have him come in to face people that I once hurt, to tell them no, that, what, God is good, and to, in some cases, apologize to some people and stuff. But I thank God, I went back into Laventille, because at the time, the place that I called home was John Laventille. And I went back into Laventille, and I began telling people of what the Lord had done for me. And some were very negligent. Some of them thought, I was using this as a cover to do something else illegal, And some of them realized there was a genuine side of me that was really telling people these things. And, it wasn't long after I started a group up by Desperados. And the men and them were very, very, very willing to hear what I had to say. And some of them were my friends. And, they were really proud of me, and they sat and they listened, and they brought along people, and in no time the group began growing. And it wasn't long after I was called to go work in another part of Laventille to work with 60+ young men in a government program. And I was hired by Quantum Possibilities to do this. And I sought the Lord, and he said, yes, go. And, I went there, and, it's such a blessing that the Lord used me to open so many doors for these young men that not too far from where we are, there's another project where I understand there is over 4 guys that died in that center. But in our center, none of the guys were lost. None of them, their whole attitude has changed. Their lives has been transformed. Every one of them, and I mean everyone, because where we are, the Lord led me to have them in a church with the program. So the atmosphere is set there for them. It's not a religious thing, but it's a fact that these guys respect God. So the attitudes have been changing. And I know because of that there is some goodness in them, and that is why I do what I do, because I know, that there is goodness in these guys. And, I watch when they hold hands to pray, even in their community, when I take the class outside of the class or the building, in their community, when they hold hands, there are people in the neighborhood who look on with tears in their eyes saying, well, they've never seen this all their life, to know all these young men in their community could hold hands and pray together like this. And it really gives them a sense of hope that all is not lost. And my mother and I, this mother I wanted to kill, we reunited. I thank God I went back home. She went to England, and she ended up coming back to Trinidad, and we reunited and stuff. And there's a love for her that I can't describe. It's unspeakable. But together we go throughout the country, different parts of Trinidad and Tobago, and we feed and clothe hundreds of people monthly, along with my wife, who has a children's ministry that feeds over 150 children, and they give them toys, snack bags, and juice and stuff like that. My mother cooks for over 400 to 500 people monthly with a team called Harvest Time. My group is called Gospel on the Go International, and we go to different parts of the country as well with Harvest Time. And we keep concerts, and we also have a hamper ministry where we give out hampers to the less fortunate and the needy people in different communities. I say all this to boast in God, because we cannot do this in our own strength or of our own selves. But God has really given us, the ability. Me, myself, where I am, I know it's God, because I was expelled from school. I couldn't read and write. I was what the system would call a delinquent, a fool, someone who would die soon, who would suffer. But the Lord, he intervened, and, he began to teach me his ways. And because of that, my life was preserved. And because of that, I am where I am today. And I choose not to just sit and do nothing about it, or just keep it for myself. But I choose to go into areas where most people would not venture into because of fear. I remember days of having to hide for my life, run for my life from gunmen who were not too happy about me going to certain parts of Laventille, because they look at it as I'm teaching their enemies. So I had to run for my life. But the next morning, bright and early, I'm back there again, because the Lord sent me, and I believe that he protects me. But having said all that, my vision is really to see lives transform, mostly amongst the young men in our country. Because most of the gang violence that are taking place and all the crime, it's within the young men community. These young men, they are being led astray by gang leaders. They're being led astray by all different negative influences. And by this happening, a lot of innocent people are being hurt. And I believe that my mandate is to go into these communities, to set captives free, to teach the gospel of Jesus Christ to the poor, to help enhance lives, both physically and spiritually, not just talking, but we could talk love, but it's one thing to show love, and having that compassion, to act, as God so loved that He gave. So that is the part that we really focus on, where we go in and we give, so that then when we begin to speak, the people would have already seen that we're not just talking love, but we are also acting it out, because it's a verb. So basically, that's my life story. That's why I am now. I thank God, because I'm at a place where, hello, praise the Lord. I'll do that interview. I'll call you back. Yep. So I'm at a place where now I'm very accomplished. I'm having received awards, many awards for what we do, even from the former president, Honorable George Maxwell Richard. Having to meet him, and he having to say stuff to me that really caused me to know it's God that is in control of my life, because me and myself, I cannot do this, the person that I am. So what I'm saying is basically that's my life in a nutshell, and I urge people to go out there and really give of their substance, really not just talk and complain, but really make a decision to really to help, someone as less fortunate, not even just a family or a friend, but a complete stranger. At the end of the day, I believe that this is what we are mandated to do, to demonstrate the love of God, because if we don't do that, then people won't know, that we are children of God, because the Bible says, by this all men shall know that we are His disciples, Hello. I'm recording. Hold on. Yes, so that's me in a nutshell. Right, so basically, thank you.
Streets trying to take a innocent life. Satan rather see me sleep in bars. Satan rather see me thief in cars. Satan want me to get so high off of drugs, like I'm trying to reach these stars. But he better know that I'm not a bad man no more.